All right, guys. So I'm going to record a video about.
Hold on. All right. Hopefully we will be live. I just need to make sure that that's actually happening as a thing. There we go. Looks like we're live. All right. Good morning. As you all may notice, we are neither Carlos nor Norm. But very happy to be with you this morning. I am pseudo Carlos, and we have pseudo Norm here with us. And we will do our best to do some pale imitations of the two of them. Carlos is exciting. He's got a return trip to the New York Stock Exchange with Andrew. So it looks like Andrew finally managed to make it into the U.S. So that's good. It's good for Bearable traders, and it's good for Andrew. And we're happy to be here to help out with the pre-market show this morning. I just realized our members in the room can't see what I'm doing here. So just 1 second. We will get you set up. So many things. Wait, there you go. That's
Hey, good morning, guys.
Oh, and I forgot to mute.
How's everybody doing
There's
this
Ed.
morning?
Hey, Ed. All right. We'll talk about Ed in a second. Actually, for all of you that don't know, we have recently introduced the small account chat room, and Ed Martin has joined us at the Bearable Traders family. And he's got a chat room separate sort of feed going on because he talks about very different trading strategies. It's fantastic. So it gives everybody the opportunity to see different ways of trading simultaneously as he assesses the market in his way and sort of looks at the target stocks that he's going after. So if you're a member, you get full access to all that we're doing here and Ed's chat room as well. So always adding new stuff, always expanding. All right, with that, Jared, you didn't have a chance to do it is Friday, which means you don't do the engineering the markets. Do you have anything you want to share overall with the markets? I know, I'll just say in advance, man, I'm seeing an amazing number of sympathy plays across different stocks. We'll talk about that when we look at the gappers, but everything seems to be moving in sympathy. Don't know why that's specific to today, but hopefully we'll figure that out.
So in regards to maybe some new information, we did get private and non-farm payrolls just coming out. Looks as if they are a little bit higher than expectations. Unemployment rate for October, 4.6% versus 4.7 estimated. And that is a decrease from the previous month. So as always, I like to look at those numbers and then just look at how the market's responding to them. Understanding, of course, that this is the first reaction to it and kind of seeing how the trend holds. Basically, markets are at all-time highs. You know, no matter where you look, there's a lot of bullish activity in many different stocks. Last session, we saw things like the NASDAQ approaching that 400 mark, at least on the QQQs. The SPY kind of dragged along with it. And then some relative bullishness in IWM and the Dow accordingly. Little bit of interesting weakness in financials yesterday. That was covered up by the strength we saw in the technology sector, specifically semiconductors, which, as you know, AMD and Nvidia having some of their strongest days yesterday, pretty much on a percentage basis ever, along with some of the highest volume they've ever seen. So plenty of, I would say, momentum in certain stocks, and then some of the weakness in the more diversified indices being covered up by the strength in technology.
Yeah, technology has been interesting, and it's really been a couple of names which we'll be talking about here momentarily that really have been pushing things, which you would expect, right? The technology sector is heavily weighted with a few big gorillas in the jungle, so we can't help but have them start to dominate the market movement and the news cycle to a certain degree. When they come on board, or when they start to move. So, okay, well, let's get to that. We actually have a ton of gappers today. For all of our members, I have tried to do something a little different. Everybody, when we do this, when I do it, you can never read the gappers, so I've messed around with things a little bit. Hopefully it's a little more readable, so that you can actually see what's on the gappers page, but it does mean that you're not getting all of the information that you used to in the places you would expect. So let me I'm gonna try and no, you can't see the change. All right, well, you're gonna have to live with it. We'll start with the stuff that's gapping up. I can tell you on my list, I started making my list last night because we also had a ton of earnings. There's a lot of earnings after hours yesterday and a bunch more earnings this morning. Not everything that we're interested in. So I just isolated the stuff, frankly, that I thought would be of most interest. We'll start there. Some of them will then be duplicating the gappers, and we'll skip over them. So the stuff that we normally watch in the room that had earnings either last night or this morning, starting with DKNG. I was hoping that you could help me on this, Jared, because I was looking up news this morning, and I saw both. They beat their earnings and they missed their earnings. That they increased guidance and that they missed guidance. The actual numbers I saw looked like they missed their earnings, and they actually provided a narrowing guidance which was slightly lower than the market expectation. What's your read? Because they are gapping down.
Yeah, so looking at some of the numbers, so initially sales higher in reference to the same quarter last year, raising guidance, but then an update 2 minutes later. Ultimately, I'm seeing a little bit of a miss on 2022 sales versus the estimates, or at least the range has been widened. So kind of thinking a little bit of sympathy initially with some of the, underperformance of Penn Gaming. That one also is suffering a little bit of founder issues in terms of like an actual news event around the company. But since they are very similar in nature, I saw the sympathy first, and then with this earnings market maybe pricing in a similar correction of their earnings.
Yeah, and you're right, because Penn Gaming, while it's on our gappers list today, we've seen that it had some reaction from the market, and those two have been sort of moving together. I know that Brian has been talking about them, so we'll keep an eye on DKNG. I think it's going to be moving today. And I like it so far pre-market. It's actually moving relatively well, although it tends to be unpredictable, but for me anyways, but we'll see what happens. Pinterest was one that wasn't looking good earlier this morning, but is starting to get some volume now with, just under 300,000 shares. I know that they had earnings. I think they beat their numbers, if I read it correctly. Is that right, Jared?
I believe that's correct.
Okay. And Pinterest, Pinterest is another one of these stocks that we only tend to look at it at earnings. And frankly, I will only look at it at the open on earnings, because I find after the open, it tends to move flat. Look at the daily chart. You can see on the average day, the candles are really narrow, right? The price action is really narrow, which means your ATR is probably very low. It's one where if it doesn't make a good move off the open, I discount it. But I'll keep it here for now. We can set some levels on it. SQ was also up for earnings. It is gapping down 4%. Pre-market action actually isn't all that great. Only 155,000 shares, so it's not doing much. Although it is gapping, like that gap is a 4% gap down from where it closed yesterday. So may keep an eye on it. Was there any significant news, or just disappointing earnings? SQ and PayPal, that market has been one that's been sort of pushed on anyways for the last few days.
Yeah. Mostly earnings.
Yeah, I know I'm making you scramble for all the news here. So, all right, Airbnb was another one keeping an eye on. Airbnb also had earnings. They beat their estimates. We were seeing a lot of. It was really moving after the market closed yesterday. If I scroll back here, you can see it sort of pushed down, popped up, and then sort of flatlined, and then it gaps up a little bit more this morning, up 5% from yesterday's close. Pre-market action is okay, but not fantastic. It does have this big, what I like to call our tinfoil line, that 8 a.m. candle, so which is setting a potential trading range, and being that it's gapping up above sort of where it's been in a general uptrend, and gapping up. I see some interesting daily levels, so I'll definitely keep that on my list as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one's of particular interest because not only was there sort of a surprise beat, but if you'll notice on the gappers, another gapping up stock, Expedia, EXPE. The performance of sort of the retravel, getting back into the travel sector market tends to be kind of pushing some capital into those names. And we're seeing some sympathy across different sectors.
Well, let's talk about that because there is sympathy across sectors. Like you said, we're seeing Expedia, Airbnb in one part of the sector. Well, I'm also noticing that without any news, unless you have specific news, all of the cruise lines and airlines are also up today. I know some people were, I read an article where they were trying to tie that to the Pfizer announcement, which we'll talk about. Pfizer sort of announced they've got an oral antiviral medication, which would help with COVID, which obviously would facilitate, broader travel, making it easier for people to get access to the vaccine if they haven't got a shot or in other methods. That in turn has caused a decline in some of Pfizer's competitors. It looks like Merck is down this morning, and Novovax and a couple of others, which there could be other factors in there as well. But, I said I'm seeing all these sort of sympathetic moves where I can't find specific news, but I'm having to infer what's potentially going on.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's true for both the airliners and the cruise liners today. We've gotten a few of the earnings from specific cruise liners. Norwegian reported recently, but the reaction was fairly muted. I mean, there was a little volatility on that day. Today it looks more like the all industry push into cruises.
When did they announce? They announced on Wednesday, I think it was, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, and you're right. Like looking at the chart, it didn't really the daily chart didn't really show that much activity. So interesting that it's moving a little more now than it was even right after their their announcement. So
what I find interesting is that the entire industry has been moving kind of quietly over the past week. Ever since the beginning of November, you've seen some bullish activity in these names, but now we're finally seeing the potential of breakout and probably more momentum. So there's been some stealthy buying going on, which has been evident by the chart in some of these names.
Let's keep going. We got a ton to look at, and I said I haven't eliminated anything yet. Peloton is the next on my list. This is one of a great interest here, down almost 33%, 2.5 million shares traded. Look at this gap down. Peloton has been certainly suffering over the last 2 months, I would say, since early September. I think they were also, they did have earnings, but I didn't actually find their earnings, so maybe you can help me with that.
Let's see. All I knew was that the option market did not price their earnings correctly. So we're seeing a much more massive drop than what was priced in.
Yes, we were talking about this yesterday, everybody, how Jared was like, I think it was $11 or something, the expected move. And you're like, on an $80 stock, can't you get more precise? Come on. And then, obviously,
see that even that wasn't enough.
Right? Yeah. I mean, look at this gap, $28. I mean, this thing is down to the levels it hasn't seen since mid 2000. So, anyways, I should leave that. We can set some levels on that later. But I'm pretty excited. I think Peloton is going to be in play today. So we'll keep that on the list. Oxy was one that I had looked at for earnings. I don't know what their earnings are. I don't like the pre-market action. So being that we've got a million other things to trade, I'm going to eliminate it from my list. Uber, was up for earnings. I think they beat on revenue, missed on earnings, so a little bit of a mixed bag there. But I know that I think they announced after the market closed yesterday because we were watching them, and yeah, they had this big spike and drop at the close. Looks like they had recovered all of that and now sitting up 2% compared to yesterday's close. So far, though, pre-market action isn't great. I mean, they do have over 500,000 shares, but it's not one of the best of the ones we've already looked at. So I'll leave it here so we can set some levels, but probably will not make my short list when I've got tons of other great stuff to look at. And Kamal, you're saying that Uber has broken your heart? Yeah, it can be a tough one to trade at times. CGC, also earnings play. Man, again, pre-market doesn't look great on this. Only 200,000 shares. The daily chart's been pretty flat. Like it's been a long time since CGC has had good moves. I was hoping that after Tilray's earnings, which happened, I think, earlier this week, CGC would get some movement. But so far, it's not looking great. So while it's down 3%, I'm going to take it off my list. Again, in some days I might leave it, but in a day like today where you have just so much to look at, I have to start being selective. Expedia, Jared already mentioned, and they, yeah. Also, in and of itself, while it's gapping up here, almost 14%, it's not doing it on a lot of volume. So maybe worth setting some levels. Probably will not make my short list for trading, but I will leave it for now. Right at the top of the gappers, so let's get to the other stuff that's gapping that, frankly, I don't yet know why. OTRK, on track. 480,000 shares, up 18%. So it's the biggest gapper at this point this morning. But look at this terrible daily chart, right? Doesn't give me hope that, it's really one that typically is in play. Again, pre-market is sort of okay, but not great. I didn't have any opportunity to look up news on this. So, Jared, unless you can tell me something super exciting about it. I'm hoping.
Finding anything yet?
Yeah, I don't see anything either. So you know what? I'm killing it. As much as it's gapping up big, if it comes back,
it's earnings, but yeah, slight beat.
Yeah. Okay.
Q3 beating guidance raise.
Okay. Well, there you go. Still not excited. All right. Pfizer we talked about. It is up 10%. That is a big move for Pfizer. And you can see it all happened early, all right, on the pre-market action. Now we're leveling off. Pfizer's NYSE stock, all that means is that the New York Stock Exchange stocks tend to, their movement isn't as fluid, I'll say, as you often get on the NASDAQ, which means it could be choppy at the open. The market makers manage things on the NYSE differently than they're managed on the NASDAQ. And therefore, I'm always more cautious when I see that it's a New York Stock Exchange stock. You can tell that, by the way, by the N or Q in the top right-hand corner of your montage window. So over here, hopefully you can see that. There's an N, or there'll be a Q, or there might be an A if it's an American Stock Exchange, which some of the indices are American Stock Exchange ones. But anyways, but Pfizer is up 10%. We already mentioned the news there, keeping it on the list. OCGN has been moving over the last few days a lot. I mean, you can see these big daily candles. That being said, I know people in the room were trading it, but we're, calling it sort of crazy, a little tough to catch the movements. I'm just looking back here at the chart. I don't know if there's any specific news today or if this is just a continuation, because it did gap down yesterday, made a relatively smaller range movement. Today, could be an inside day. We're certainly starting inside that total range for yesterday. But, being that people have been watching it, Brock is saying that it trades like a low float. Okay, thanks. Because I don't typically trade it. Every time I look at it, I don't like it that much, so I just sort of move on. Of course, I tend to default back to Apple and AMD quite a lot, so my requirements are pretty specific. All right, now we've got on the gappers a significant number that I was looking at. NCLH, we already talked about. American Airlines gapping up almost 6% on 2.6 million shares. It's looking pretty good this morning. It can certainly, move. Now, don't expect a $4 or $5 move on American Airlines, but you can get a good, steady, $1 to $2 move, which if you, play it properly, take the right share size, can be beneficial. We're also seeing UAL, Delta Airlines, right? They all seem to be moving this morning, just like we're seeing CCL, right? Carnival Cruise Lines, NCLH, they're moving as well. So generally, I'm going to keep these guys on my list. Generally, if I'm going to default to anything, it's normally Carnival Cruise Lines, CCL, and American Airlines from an airline. United can also be a mover on certain days. Its price action is smoother, but they often have lower volume. So as you can see, only 700,000 shares today compared to American Airlines, which has 2.7 million. So we can't go without mentioning Nvidia and my buddy AMD. So both of them setting new all-time highs yesterday. Nvidia moving over $300 and AMD moved over $130 for the first time. And I noticed pre-market AMD actually hit over $140 before having pulled back. I didn't see anything new this morning, Jared, unless you got something new in the semiconductor sector. There just generally seems to be some interest and excitement for the sector. Nvidia and AMD are absolutely, they're the stalwarts that are pushing this general industry. We were looking at Intel, for example, and it was terrible. But these two have been moving great.
Yeah, these two move in sympathy most of the time when there is bullish activity or bearish. Lots of news around Facebook's change into Meta or Metaverse. Lots of sort of speculation that Nvidia will have a key sort of hand in that transition and the eventual sort of move to more AI-focused companies in the next 5 to 10 years. So lots of speculative activity yesterday.
Yep, indeed. All right, so I've got this massive list, and I haven't even got to the gap down. So let's take a look at some of the stuff that's on the gap down list. Dcph. Wow, that is gapping down a ton. 72%. I don't know if I've ever heard this ticker symbol. Decipher Pharmaceuticals, almost 2 million shares traded. Man, massive gap down. So far, the pre-market, though, is totally flat. What's going on with this? Any idea, Jared? It's a little strange to gap down and then flatten like that.
Looks like phase 3 study did not meet primary endpoint.
Okay.
Resuming trade down 70%. So this is another sort of pharma that didn't quite hit the benchmark.
Yeah. All right. So whenever you've got a study that doesn't meet, you can get the opportunity for a big move. Is this a low float? What's its float? No, 36 million shares. So it's got a decent float. But at a $10 price point, which was a $36 price point yesterday, keep in mind. This thing certainly, you could get moves up and down on this, right? Because we could get a lot of bounces. So it might be worth keeping an eye on if you're interested in trading it. You might be hard-pressed to set some reasonable levels on it, but I'll leave it on here so we can do just that. Next, we have EVAX, EVAX, 1.6 million shares, down 44%. Another biotech. I don't have a float listed for EVAX, so they might be a lower float here. But let's take a look. What is their float? Yeah, they're only 9 million shares float on this. And this looks like a secondary offering. Is that what you're seeing as well, Jared?
Sorry, answering a question.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to look, but if that's what you see, I believe you.
That's what we'll go with. Interestingly, they jumped up a lot yesterday. Look at this candle yesterday. Jumped up obviously early yesterday and then just sold off. Looks like for the day. Let's take a look here. I'm just going to go back here and look at some daily information. Yeah, so they leapt up after hours, actually, 2 days ago, so on Wednesday, and then just sort of meandered slowly downwards throughout the day yesterday, and now we're sort of back to where they were earlier in the week. So I don't know if this is actually going to be in play. It may not be of interest. I'll leave it for now. Merck, we talked about, down 9%, largely we think a sympathy move because of Pfizer's sort of big news. It looks like they're taking a lead on the COVID sort of follow-up treatment. information. So they're down 9%, 2.7 million shares. Merck, tough to trade here. I usually find, again, another NYSE stock, but I'll leave it on my list for now. mRNA also down 14%, 2.3 million shares traded. Again, Jared, unless you tell me there's something unique to them, I'll assume it's sort of a reaction move. Not really sympathy, but a reaction move.
Yeah, reaction move. They already had their earnings, but this is a sort of a new sympathy catalyst.
Right. Okay. Nikola is on the list here. Doesn't look great pre-market. It's down 5%. Had a big move yesterday, so this is really just a retracement from yesterday's move. Only 500,000 shares. I don't actually know what the news was yesterday, but seems to be just pulling back from that a little bit.
Should have been earnings, so no. Okay.
Again, compared to other stuff, I don't like it as much. I've got so much on the list. I just have to start killing things. So, I don't. Futu, F-U-T-U.
Just a quick time reminder. We're getting to that.
I'm running short. So I'm going to get rid of Futu, and Novovax is the last one I had picked out earlier. Down 13%, 800,000 shares. It sort of looks like mRNA and Merck and, and the others. So you can sort of take your pick out of these as they're all sort of gapping down. If you really prefer to trade one over the other, then go for it. So massive list of things to take a look at here and to set levels on. It's going to be hard to pick this morning. Look, the good news is that we've got lots of options. These are actually days I find challenging because you've got to sort of make some selections. But let's get back to that because we're going to have to set levels. Let's quickly go to our announcements for this morning, and you can just maybe tell us what's coming up for next week, Jared, and we got some great new promotions.
All right, sounds good. All right, so starting off, let's see. So we're starting with our strategy and trade books, our webinars this week. We had Kyle with important metrics to journal that occurred on Tuesday and should be up unless otherwise any issues with publishing. Next week, we have Mike with how to find your trading strategy to meet your trading goals. That's going to be Tuesday at 8 Eastern time. Let's see. And I think that's it for webinars. So next slide. All right. So this week, we also had on Wednesday, Dr. Kenneth Reed, Basic Market Dynamics. That should also be posted. If not, double check on that. And then next week, we have Creta, and it's going to be our Money Mindset series, Build $1 Million Mindset. Said it a little bit better than Norm. But that'll be occurring next Wednesday at 5. Note the time difference for that particular webinar.
I like that little subtle trash talking too. Awesome.
He's not here to defend himself, so that's why not.
Exactly.
All right, so continuing with our BBT Family Charity of the Month. All Super Chat and Super Sticker revenue matched dollar for dollar by Andrew and donated to our November charity. November charity being the Fisher Center for Alzheimer's Research Foundation. So really appreciate all the support we've been getting for that and look forward to see what our final number is. And if you're interested in joining Bearable Traders, come join us for 1 week for free using the code PREMARKET24. Get access to all of our onboarding classes. And more importantly, and just making sure I've got my contacts cleared out, we're offering a new promotion. This is going to be our Black Friday deal. Biggest discount of the year, according to this banner. And that is going to be using the discount code Black Friday 45. That gets you 45% off of the Elite Annual Membership, and you get a month of the simulator included with that promotion. It's the biggest we've ever offered, according to Norm. Apparently he is here, so he might actually give me a direct message defending himself. but we definitely want to highlight that new promotion and hope that you all take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's a great promotion. So if you're thinking of joining, now's the time. That is a great deal, especially with the included simulator. That's a big value. So hopefully you'll take advantage, and we'll see you in the chat room here soon. Speaking of the chat room, yeah, Norm did defend himself. You probably didn't catch it while you're reading the announcements. He said that you're jealous of his hair, so shot back across the bow, and then he threw me under the bus too and said we were both jealous of his hair. So, all right then, game on, buddy. All right, thanks for that, Jared. I really appreciate it. Okay, guys, I've left us not a lot of time to set some levels, so I'll do my best here to just set a couple of key levels on each of these stocks, and maybe you guys can tell me, if there's other levels, just throw them out into the chat, or if you're in YouTube, put them out there. You notice I haven't asked for other tickers. I can't handle them anyways. We just have way too many. So let's start at the top of the list with DKNG. I've already got some daily levels that I had set. I'm going to keep those for myself. You can see them here. So those are the purple lines. It might be hard. I've got a lot of lines on my chart. But 45.27, which is above the current price action, and 41.79 are levels that I'd already marked. If I look back in May, that was a level that I was watching. I'm seeing another one that's now in play right here. 42.21 was sort of a spike low here back in July. So I'm going to throw a level there so I can keep an eye on that. And then just in case we drop even further, the low here in May was $39.93, so we got just below the $40 mark. So that's worth keeping an eye on if DKNG drops even further, which frankly it could very well do. We'll see what happens on this one. Pinterest, as I said, not one of our best for today. Quick levels on this one. Well, we're down sort of near the lows of the last few days. So the low of yesterday is something to keep an eye on. We are gapping up a little bit above that. So the highs and lows of the last few days are good. If we really start going, watch the gap that we had back here late October. So the low of that gap is 51.39 to keep an eye on, and then the high of that gap is at 57.63. So if we move into that gap, things love to fill the gap. So keep an eye. But that's a big move to even get there. So I don't honestly expect pins to do that today. SQ. Whoop, did I click on it? SQ. What's going on here? Hold on a sec. Why are these on LinkedIn? There we go. All right, we're back. SQ, you can see I've got some previous levels set on the downside. So to the upside, being that this thing is gapping up, if Square decides to move up, personally, I'm going to look at right over here at 265.65. That's an area I'll keep an eye on. By the way, Jared, you are magic at levels as well. So if you've got something different that you think is significant, don't be afraid to throw it out. But I know you got a lot of stuff you're looking at right now.
Sounds good.
Yeah, the other level I'm going to look at here is 268.17. That was the spike high of this day on September the 23rd. So 268.17, I'll keep an eye on it. Notice how it, let me just put it actually at 268. I notice how it coincides with a rough high back here in July, so might be an area to keep an eye on. Moving down to Airbnb, big gap here, not a lot of volume, so probably not one of the best ones so far, but I just want to see what happens with this. I've got to move back here to earlier in the year, in April time frame. I'm going to set a level 194.50 actually is where I want to put this one. As it looks like it had a little, sort of oscillating around that, and then had a high back in April off of that level. So I'll keep an eye on that. And I will set this, what I call the tinfoil line here. So like I said, when you get these big candles that stand out at 8 a.m., that tells me that may be a range to take a look at. So I'll keep an eye on that with a high of 190.10 and a low of 186 even on that. So we'll keep an eye on that. Peloton, wow, continues to get beat down here. Moving back in time on Peloton, I've got to go back all the way, like I said, to sort of mid-2020 to find any price action that's relevant. Really nothing of significance right here. If we continue to move down heavily, we might find some support. So I've got 49.68 as a high here. 49.30 is a high there. So 49.50, I'm going to leave my level right there to see if we actually drop. Now, remember, that is $8 down. So it's a little ways away. However, being that we're gapping down $28, it is absolutely within reach by my estimation. I'm also just going to put a level here at 58.23 as it was sort of a low water mark that was set in July. And I'll just keep an eye on that to see if that has any relevance to the price action whatsoever on Peloton. Uber, we mentioned, price action hasn't really picked up so far this morning. As for levels, well, look, highs and lows of the previous 2 days currently bracket the price action, so that's the first thing to take a look at. Next level I'll set to the high side is right around here where I see we had a couple of days go off of 47.40. This is 47.20. 47.50. So 47.40 is a good area for that level as a general place to take a look at for Uber. Expedia, you know what? Still don't like the price action. I'm getting rid of it. Done. All right. Pfizer. Pfizer's gapping up like we mentioned. I don't know if... Was this all-time high on Pfizer? I got to go back here and see. Looks like it.
The spike to like 51, 52 was...
Yeah. So, well, hold on a sec. I see the price rising again. So we were in this price range way back in 1999, believe it or not. So, you know, how relevant is that? 24 years ago? You know, whatever. I don't know. 23 years ago. I'll leave it off the list here. We did have a spike high at 51.86. I'm definitely going to put a level at that to keep an eye on. And then 2 days later, we only hit 51.36. So personally, I like to mark that as well. Those are the levels I'll take a look at. I also have, why was this here? 50.50, right, because so we hit it when we were spiking up there back in August. So I don't know if Pfizer can really make that leap. I mean, that's would be equivalent to the move that it's made up right now, right? So it's another $4. Seems a little bit much. However, yesterday's high is an interesting level if we drop back here for a pullback. $46, $45.99 was the high yesterday, so that may be a place to keep an eye on if we get a big pullback, but that would be a pretty big pullback at the open. All right, OCGN. I've already got some daily levels set from when I must have been looking at this previously at 13.65, 16.20. Right now, we're only up marginally, so I will put... Actually, you know what? Let me get rid of all of these. It gets a little confusing in here. So I like 1198 is the level that I've got in here. I'm going to put that on my chart. I'm also going to put a level at this spike high at 1323, so we'll put that one there to keep an eye on an OCGN. If we drop down, yesterday's close would be the first place I would, yesterday's low would be a place I'd look at. NCLH, we've mentioned, is moving and it's gapping up this morning. Going back in time a little bit, we had a couple of days we were in the 48, 50, 60 area, so I'm going to put a level in there to keep an eye on, although we're almost there now. The highs of the previous 2 days might be low water marks to keep an eye on for today, and I'm certainly going to mark here 29.50. Is that right? 29.45 actually, where we hit a spike high on September the 27th. American Airlines, well, we'll also look at the highs in that late September area because we're moving up towards that now. So I'll just set a high at these 2 days. You can see 22.08 and 22.18. Actually, that should be 22.19. I'll just move that over. We're good there. That's it. United, well, same thing, right? This is actually early October this time. 52.43 seems to be the high we hit, so I'm going to set a level there. We're not far from it now, so we'll see what happens. If you need to set more levels, you're going to have to go back into May to July. Carnival Cruise Lines, CCL, well, we're just gapping up a little bit here. So we're above the range of the previous couple of days. Let me clear all these old levels out. 24.40 is an area I'll keep an eye on, although we almost got there pre-market. And then I like this one right here at 25 and a quarter, so I'll put a level right there. If it goes above that, I'll reevaluate for these levels. Again, you notice that all of the travel sector seems to have hit their relative near-term highs in about the same time period. Nvidia, well, I really have no levels for an Nvidia because we're at all-time high like we mentioned. So really, you're best off to watch the price action from the previous couple of days and see where it might have found support or some significant levels. Right up here at the 300s, I mean, really, it was only yesterday that we were even, sort of breached that level and set some targets. So I've got not much really to set here. Nvidia, when it's at all-time highs, it's always interesting. Of course, it could pull back today. We'll see what it gives us. AMD, almost the same story. Set all-time highs yesterday, and then again pre-market, we went even higher. I honestly don't know what to expect of AMD, but I love watching it, so it's always on my mind and always on my list. All right, getting to the few gap downs that we have. Dcph we talked about, way down here, 72%. You have to go way back in time to find a time when this thing was even at that level. Can I even find a time? Actually, you cannot. So this is all-time lows. So it looks like this only IPO'd back in 2017. And we have 0 levels here because we are below any price it's ever been at. So it actually IPO'd higher than this. So that actually makes it a little more interesting. Although, when you look at the price action, it's done nothing since that gap down. So I don't know what to expect. Definitely a secondary list for me. EVAX here, again, gapping down 43%. But remember, that's really just bringing it back to the level it was at only 2 days ago. So whatever caused it to move up, sort of gapped up yesterday morning, obviously, because it's a big red candle. Then it moved down all day, and we're just back at that sort of pre-jump levels. It may do absolutely nothing. I'm just going to keep the highs and lows of 2 days ago as a marker. Merck is down, like we mentioned, 10%. Pretty big move for Merck. As you can see, it doesn't normally move that much. Where we're sitting at now, notice there's a gap back here, late September. So definitely, I mark the high of the gap and the low of the gap, because if we get into that gap, so it's got to get down below $80.63 for it to enter that gap space. But if it does, often it can drop all the way, and that would be a good $4 move. So we'll see if that happens today. The only other marker I'll put on here is it did have an interim high. Back over here in August, 79.20-ish. So I'll just put a level there to keep an eye on. All right, 2 more, guys. mRNA down below its recent price action range. However, we do have levels here in June and July to keep an eye on. I'm just going to set them here real quickly. You can see at 220, 230, and this one here at 245.70. So this is one that tends to move big range, down $42 so far this morning. We'll see what happens with mRNA. Last but not least, Novovax. Well, this is more interesting that it's in a range. So there was a near-term gap here back mid-October, where you can see the low of this was up here at 160.20 actually. So let me just mark that properly. 160.20. And then the low of this was 147.44. So, this is a place where it could very well play in this gap here today. So this Novovax may be interesting if it does that and the volume picks up when the opening bell rings. All right, so out of that, guys, we got a ton to watch. Personally, I'm going to keep an eye on AMD and Nvidia because those are ones that I like to watch. I'm going to keep an eye on DKNG. We haven't mentioned some of the stalwarts, if you will, that we tend to watch every day, because they've just been moving. Tesla, for example, which is also at all-time highs. Apple, which has sort of just been steadily moving, although it's sort of leveled out the last couple of days. If you want to watch them, go right ahead. All right. My voice is parched, a lot of talking, a lot of levels today. We got a ton of stuff that was on the gapper. So thank you for sitting through that with me. Hopefully you've found stuff out of that big list that you yourself are going to watch. I don't know if our moderators have had a chance to put anything up here yet. Let me take a look here, and we'll see what our moderators are watching. Maybe you guys can post some stuff and we can see what it looks like. Let me. This is not as pretty as what Carlos can normally do, but so John is going to be watching Roku, which we didn't actually talk about, Boeing and Coin, all of which I didn't even review. It just shows you how much stuff there is that you could potentially look at. Mike is going to be looking at Boeing and Airbnb. Brian is looking at Las Vegas Sands, LVS, mRNA, CCL, Lyft, and UAL. So at least a bunch of those we were taking a look at. And the rest of our moderators haven't yet put anything in. I will tell you, I was looking at, well, I don't know what I did with it now, but I was looking at IPOs, which I also take an eye on, and we call out in the room. So if you're a member, you get me, I will call those out for you all. So SPACs and IPOs. We have another good list of IPOs and special purpose acquisition vehicles that are coming online today. So every once in a while they give us some good trading opportunities. So I keep an eye on those for you. I'll post them for our members once I get off the microphone here. Tiffany's come in with her list with Nvidia, Pfizer, Moderna, DKNG. I almost called it Donkey Kong. Anyways, DKNG, Peloton, and as she said, there is way too much to watch. Dima is going to be watching Apple, AAL, and AMD. Dima, love it. You put AMD in your list, it makes me happy. All right, with that.
Woo. So Peter, let me give you a little break. Say a few things before we sign off.
You bet.
Today is Friday, so as always, it is a notable expiration day for a lot of stocks with weekly option expirations. Most of the names that we're seeing do contain a weekly series, so if you're interested in what's known as option pinning type strategies, usually these are certain price levels that stocks with not a lot of high volume are going to oscillate around on the Friday. And what you can do is take advantage of these price oscillations through either some range strategies. Usually you have to find the level first, or use options to sort of take a delta neutral position or a non-directional position today. Some of these price levels can be found using different websites, but you're also going to be looking at prices that the stocks normally gravitate to. Key example being Apple 150 is a very notable level that the price not only draws itself to, but has a hard time moving itself away from. So we'll be posting some of those in the chat room later today. But if you know how to search for those, and if you've attended Peter and I's webinar, there are some online resources to find those key levels. Additionally, with some of the earnings plays, a lot of them have broken outside of their expected move, so do expect some potential hedging activity as people who may be positioned in regards to that notable range are now either underwater or looking to take profit. And either way, that's going to force either the stock to move in the direction of the breakdown or breakout, or see a return to that expected move level, sort of the risk level for earnings. So lots of option activity. We're seeing it in some of the more speculative stocks. Peter and I can comment pretty well that Nvidia was not moving normally yesterday. And that is mostly due to the amount of expected move breach that it had. A lot of option activity and a lot of people bidding it higher until that eventual top was made at about 312. So keep all that in mind. Keep your risk in check as always. And just know that once things get moving in a certain direction, they can move for quite a while with what's going on in the option market recently.
Great.
That's it.
Thanks, Jared. Look, so there's my alarm telling me that we've got 10 minutes before the market opens. So we are going to go back into the room. If you're on YouTube, thanks so much for joining us. Hopefully you'll consider joining as a member. We'd love to have you in the room, whether it's on the trial membership or as an elite member. If you are new, say hi to us. We love saying hi to everybody that's new. And we're going to go live to the open with Brian and maybe a mystery guest, because I think Andrew's going to be at the markets. Maybe if we're lucky, Thor will make a guest appearance and wave at us anyways. If not, we'll find someone to help Brian out. We can't leave him without adult accompaniment. So, take care, everybody. Keep smiling. Trade safe. As Carlos would say on a Friday, don't do anything you're going to regret over the weekend. Trade to your rules, trade smart, and hopefully you can keep it green. Take care, everybody. Have a great Friday and a great weekend.
Later.